Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to this episode of the podcast. I'm your host, Betty. We're finally back to talking about Outlander tonight. We're going to be discussing the 9th episode of Season 1 called The Reckoning. But before we get into all of that, I have a few things to say off the top. After listening back to the last episode, I don't have anything to add to the discussion. But I did notice that I have made a lot of changes since I did the last episode of Outlander. And if y'all only listen to this show, then y'all may not know the changes that I've made. So I want to discuss a few of those right now. Number one, I changed the name of the show. It is no longer Talking About Fun Things. It's called Talking About Fun TV Shows. And the reason why I wanted to do that was because I started this podcast and I thought I was going to be talking about my hobbies. And that's just not the direction I'm going. I talked to a few seasoned podcasters, and they told me that I probably want to narrow it down to grow my audience. So I changed it from Fun Things to Fun TV Shows because I talk about The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Men in Kilts, and Outlander, and those are fun TV shows. So that's the reason for the name change. Another thing that I want to talk about. I've renamed my episodes, and again, that's another thing. I've made it because I looked through the podcast and I realized that the way I was naming these episodes, it was so confusing and it was boring, and so I hope I've made it more organized and made it easier for y'all to find what episodes y'all want to listen to, because I know some of y'all probably don't want to listen to The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, so if you don't want to listen to that, you can skip through it, if you don't want to listen to episodes about Outlander, you don't have to, so it's just, I've gone through it and organized it better, so hopefully it's a lot easier to navigate through the through the podcast site there. Number 3, I've changed the music. Like, I was listening to some of my earlier episodes and I realized that theme song, not a bad theme song, but when you hear it like repeatedly, like over and over and over, and maybe it's just me, I don't know, but it can get a little annoying. So I've changed the theme songs to each show to reflect that show, so, cause like on, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I have something that sounds something more like the Marvel theme song. And for Men in Kilts, I found some bagpipe music. And for this episode, for this show, Outlander, y'all may have noticed that I have bagpipes playing now instead of that stuff that I had before. So anyway, and number 4, I've added more social media platforms. You can find all the links to them in the descriptions. And by the way, if you are listening to this on YouTube, you can hit the subscribe button and the notifications button, because so that y'all can figure out when I post new content over there. Let's see, what else do I have written down here? I guess that's it. I guess I've talked enough about all of this, so let's just dive right into, we're talking about Outlander tonight. So, the synopsis reads, Jamie and the others manage to rescue Claire from the hands of Blackjack Randall, but Jamie is particularly upset with her for wandering off into the woods and getting caught in the first place. Harsh words are exchanged, but Claire is prepared to overlook anything he said, but she isn't quite prepared for the punishment she receives at his hand for disobeying him and putting everyone's life in danger. They return to Castle Leoch, where Jamie must explain to Leary Mackenzie how it is he is now married. Colin McKenzie, meanwhile, is none too pleased with their return, particularly that they were collecting money for the Jacobites. Okay, so this episode opens up with Jamie saying a voiceover, and I wrote it down. I also went back to the first episode and wrote what Claire said. But Jamie says, strange the things you remember. The people, the places, the moments in time burned into your heart forever, while others fade in the mist. I've always known I'd live a life different from other men, and when I was a lad, I saw no path before me. I simply took a step and then another, forever forward, ever onward, rushing toward some place I knew not where. And one day I turned around and looked back and saw that each step I'd taken was a choice to go left, to go right, to go forward, or even not go at all. Every day, every man has a choice between right and wrong, between love and hate, sometimes even between life and death, and the sum of those choices becomes your life. The day I realized that is the day I became a man. And I also wrote Claire's down from the first episode, and hers says, strange the things you remember, single images and feelings that stay with you down through the years, like the moment I'd realized I'd never owned a vase, that I'd never lived in any place long enough to justify having such a simple thing, and how at that moment I wanted nothing so much in all the world as to have a vase of my own. It was a Tuesday afternoon 6 months after the end of the war. Somehow in my mind, VE Day, the end of the bloodiest and most terrible war in human history, grows fainter with each passing day. But I can still recall every detail of the day when I saw the life I wanted sitting in a window. I sometimes wonder what would have happened if I'd bought that vase and made a home for it. Would that have changed things? Would I have been happy? Who can say? I know this, even now, after all the pain and death and heartbreak that followed, I still would make the same choices. Okay, so the reason why I wanted to write both of those down is because they're kind of mirror images of each other. You know, the first episode, that's the episode that changed Claire's life forever. And in this episode, and of course this is the very first episode we're seeing through Jamie's perspective. Most of the time it's always through Claire's perspective. So they kind of made Jamie the highlight of this episode. And I wanted to, because this was a turning point in his life. You know, this whole episode is the start of things to come for him. So I just wanted to kind of, you know, showcase that the mirrors, how similar those two speeches are. They're kind of different, but they're kind of the same too. They use like strange the things you remember and you know. But anyways, in this episode, The Reckoning, it starts out, I mean, after that voiceover, it starts out, Jamie is talking to Horrocks, and he's tells them that Black Jack Randall was the one that killed the man that Jamie is wanted for and everything. And Jamie can't really use this information because he can't go and accuse a captain of, you know, what he did. So, but anyway, Horrocks, you know, gets up to go and leave. And then William, he rides in and tells Jamie that Claire has been taken. And so they all get on their horses and ride off to go save Claire. And it's worth mentioning because, you know, that the theme music comes on after that scene. And then the title card, you know, The Reckoning is the name of the episode. And they showed Jamie putting on his kilt, and I thought that was really neat to see how they would put on their kilts back then. They probably still do it today. You know, you have to lay on the floor and wrap it around, and it's